Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Hands Across the Water. Crazy show, I suppose we're going to have this hour. The last time we were with you is on a Monday. Barry was reading out statements from Andrew and Parag about the mistakes they'd made, and they were going to put it right. And the next time we're with you on a Monday, we've got ourselves a manager. But is he the right one? That's what we'll have a chat about today. And I'm sure using guys and gals in the comments will have your own things to say as well. But before we get into it all, Barry, he's with us here as usual, and our good friend Gary from Not Another Rangers podcast. Gary, how are you keeping, mate? All good?
I'm good. I kind of was thinking this is like the Rangers managerial search. You've worked your way down from David Edgar and Stevie Clifford and all these other ones to you've actually found somebody to take the job on to do the night show. So thank you for having
me. No worries, buddy. No worries at all, mate. You're always welcome here. You know that. Barry, what about yourself, mate? How are you keeping?
Fairly glad we've got somebody in place. That's a huge thing, and we can kick on and stop all this drama of who was coming in, who wasn't coming in. It was just getting a bit tiresome, wasn't it? So yeah, I'm pleased today we finally announced somebody.
Yeah, there was getting a bit frustrated, especially last night. You know, last weekend we all thought Gerard was getting it in the next minute on the Saturday. He didn't. He had pulled out, and then obviously this weekend we thought that Muscat was going to be the one ready to take us into this European game. We knew he wasn't going to take us European. We thought it was Neil McCann was going to take over until he could come in after the Chinese League. I even spent Friday watching the Chinese bloody Super League or whatever it's called, doing a scouting mission for our show on Friday night, which was a waste of time. But then he pulled out. There was rumours that Rohl had come back in. I think he had pulled out of the job on Wednesday. He was just fed up because it seemed like he was just being strung along for a bit there. So he had pulled out, I think it was on Wednesday last week, and next minute he was back in and he's took on the job. He's going to be the man. Well, he's wearing a suit at the minute. I don't know if he'll wear a suit beside the pitch. He might wear a tracksuit. We'll wait and see. But there was some decent pictures of him in a suit there about the last hour or so ago. Barry, have you got a few quotes just from the new manager and a few from the hierarchy? If you want to just start with them, and then we'll ask Gary and stuff what's everyone's thoughts on what's happening.
Bear with me. I'm reading this off my phone, so bear with me on this one. This is from Danny Rohl, the new Rangers FC head coach. Rangers is built on a tradition of hard work, unity, and success. That is exactly what you will get from me and what I want my team to represent for all of you. The expectations here are clear. The fans want to see results now. My mentality and experience is to think in exactly the same way, and I believe in the players that we can achieve this. There's four other quotes here. The first one's from Andrew Kavanagh, the chairman. Danny impressed us with his vision, his character, and his understanding of what Rangers stands for. Parag Maraf. This has been a thorough process to ensure we identified the right person to lead the club forward. And apologies for the next two guys, but I have to read them out. Patrick Stewart. It's now our job to give him every support possible to move the club forward quickly and decisively. And Kevin Thelwell. His job will be to get the best out of the players and build a team that first and foremost wins as we all target success this season.
So Thelwell we'll go for the last one first, Gary. I suppose it's his job is to get the best out of the players, but is it going to be his own players or is it going to be Thelwell? That's one of the ones, the questions I think most of the support's asking. But what's your thoughts on the whole process, Gary? Because you haven't been on with us, mate, since it's all started. What have you been thinking of it all? Because a lot of the support obviously been disgruntled and stuff, and a bit of a shambles, and it took too long. But what's your own thoughts on the whole thing, mate?
It's been demoralising. I think it's fair to say it's been quite frustrating watching from the outside. It's been a shambles, as some of the words that people have used. There's a lot of different adjectives been thrown about over the last couple of weeks. I suppose it's hard to know fully because you're never really on the inside of it. You're hearing snippets in the media, you're hearing bits and pieces. You don't really know who's right and who's wrong, who's telling the truth and who's telling versions of the truth. But I think when we came into the national break, we all expected the manager to be in before the game against the United. They've obviously been heavily in discussions with two or three of them, and two of them are very close apparently. And it took until one pulling out and went Sunday was it? I can't remember the days now. And 24 hours later, we appointed somebody. So I suppose the interesting thing, Rohl's been in there since the start, In fact, even in the summertime, wasn't he? He was in there. He was one of the heavy favourites at the time. So there's obviously a liking that they have for him now. Whether they, I don't want to say before we come on there, there's a lot about me thinks that Rohl was somebody they were really, really keen on, but in the same way that the previous sport who were too emotionally connected, arguably, they bottled it and decided to maybe go for somebody that was a more popular choice in Muscat and Gerrard. So now that they two have rejected it, there's a bit of me thinks they went back to Rohl and said, "You know, this is a guy we really want anyway. We'll go back and we'll take it. And we'll just take the chances with it."
Yeah, that there's what a lot of supporters thinking as well too, Baz. You know, with the likes of Gerrard, but Guy says earlier they went for Gerrard, didn't work, obviously. Well, people don't know. People say tax reasons. People saying it's reasons due to with Thelwell and what way the structure would be, and he wanted more of a say. And obviously with Muscat, the same has sort of come out. The Rangers have put out basically they had put out that it wasn't having to do with that. It was because he couldn't come straight away. But I think Rangers knew for quite some time that if we were getting Muscat, he wouldn't be here straight away. And then his side came out last night and said, no, that's not the case. It's more to do with structure and stuff. So Gary probably is right in what he's saying, Baz. Maybe they did want Danny Rohl from the start because he suits what way they want to run the club. But the question would be, why have they put us through this rigmarole for 2 weeks? Why not just get the man from the start? You know, at the end of the day, I think it's actually made the support even more angry, putting us through what they have for the 2 weeks, rather if they had just got him at the start and said, look, he's our man.
Well, I think the biggest problem here is probably if you look at Gerrard and Muscat briefly, I would surmise, in my personal opinion, it's definitely been down to Thelwell. It's been a problem with him that them two particular guys didn't want to really get into that full project with him there because he has far too much control with recruitment. I honestly believe those two, that was the major problem. Danny Rohl obviously is more of a head coach, and he believes that what's already there, he can do the business with. So I think you see two very different scenarios there. We were talking, Gary, just before we come on, and the Danny Rohl thing, as soon as his name was mentioned, it was very Lampard-esque a couple of years ago when his name was mentioned. The socials went absolutely bucked off crazy and were refusing that they wanted Rohl. And I think that might have played a bit of a part with at Ibrox not wanting to appoint somebody so negative, especially after the Russell Martin disaster that had just happened. But as Gary says, I think Rohl is somebody that the board like. I think that there's somebody that they really actually did want to appoint because they want a head coach, not a structural manager as per se. And they've got their man. And at the end of the day, regardless of what we think about Danny Rohl, he's now our head coach and we have to get behind him. And that is the reality. It doesn't matter whether you like him or you don't like him, you think he's going to do well or he's not going to do well. We have to get behind him. But what I would say is, finally, on this point, is that Patrick Stewart and Thelwell are still a major thorn in the side for the supporters, and that particular thing isn't going to go away.
Yeah, I seen a comment there. Let me see where it is. Where are we? Rohl should, let me see where we can get this up here. Rohl should have stayed away. He will get the hate. First bad result, which could happen soon. Do you agree with that, Gary, or do you think that people now be putting their focus on Thelwell rather than the actual manager? Because I know for me, because I was like everyone else, with Russell Martin situation, but didn't like him. The way it didn't look good, in my opinion, that he was never the right man, and he did get some stick. But I think that it has to fall Thelwell and Stewart here. This is the guy they wanted in to start,
I think, if we'd appointed, the funny thing is, if we'd appointed Rohl, 2 weeks ago today or so, the hate he would probably got would have been worse in terms of his capability, people's perspective of him as a manager or as a head coach, whatever you want to call it. I think given the fact that Gerrard and Muscat issues happen, fans are actually quite happy to see somebody being appointed, and there's not a lot of other names on the table. So I think there's, in a funny way, it's actually helped him that Gerrard and Muscat have been in the mix for the last 2 weeks, and he's not been the front runner, the one that's been picked in the unanimous decision. It's allowed him maybe to fly under the radar now that he's come in. Most of the comments I've seen from podcasts or even looking at the site here seem to say it's not the manager's fault. Let him give him a chance, which wouldn't have been the case, I don't think, 2 weeks ago. Now Thelwell and Stewart's an interesting one because they are getting all the hate and arguably rightly so. But I find it naive for MD to think that there's two owners that own the club and they're sitting there saying, "You just do what you want, guys. We'll not get involved. We'll let you do it. And we'll let you make a mess of things without us having any say." So I think well, they've failed a lot of decisions they've made. I don't think it's I think it's safe to say that the American owners knew about all the decisions they're making, and I think they shouldn't be absolved of any responsibility for the bad appointments and the bit of the mess of the recruitment process.
What's your thoughts on that, Baz, as well, then, mate?
Well, the owners have to take on responsibility. Of course they do. I mean, they own the club, you know, and they entrust these two guys to make certain decisions. So, yes, you're right, Gary. The owners do have to take responsibility. When they came out with the statement a couple of weeks ago, I was actually really pleased with that statement. I thought would really kick on and would really make a decision quickly and get somebody in. That hasn't happened. It's very roller coastery. The problem with Thelwell and Stewart is they're at Ibrox most of the time, so they're going to get most of the abuse rather than the owners because they're not there as often. But it's like everything. You've seen the owner at Nottingham Forest and the way he's getting on. So too many owners now are doing things like that they never used to do. They're taking a lot more, highlighted control. But I just still can't for the life of me. Personally, with Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, and as much as the owners are to blame, I just still can't get the two guys out of my head. It's just the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, like the Thelwell situation, I'm just, there's been a few red flags of Patrick Stewart with the support now. We've known that, even before the new regime actually got their foot through the door. There's a couple of situations with the support at the old firm game at Ibrox and stuff, if you remember. There's been a few red flags earlier. Your man Thelwell, for me, came from Everton, Gary. And as I say, just because you're in the Premier League doesn't mean you're amazing. But it seems to be this new thing. If you've been involved at any level in the Premier League, then you're people think you must be great. They got him, and the likes of 10 million for Shermati. Well, I think it's 10 million if he plays well. If he hits his numbers, he's 8 million that we paid for him. We've brought in that young fella from Peterborough for 3.5 Fernandez, who can't get into the team. And it just doesn't look good at the minute for him either. So it doesn't. I don't know what your thoughts are on the whole thing, but I don't think he'll be here for much longer. If I'm being honest, I don't think so.
No, I think there's an argument that Thelwell and Stewart probably have been burned that much that they can't recover, and they won't be here now. As I say, none of us really know the ins and outs of who's making the decisions, who's the one to blame for a lot of these things. Whether it's Stewart that signs off the signings, whether it's the American owners, whether it's Thelwell that picks everybody and so forth. I think but in the eyes of the fans, are toxic. That's the problem. It doesn't really matter who's right and who's wrong with these things. In the eyes of the fans, think that they're the ones to blame for the decision-making process. They are the ones that are going to be tarred with it. And the owners themselves will probably, if I'm thinking, if it's not Christmas, come the end of the season, they'll quietly exit both of them. If not before then, I don't think it'll be immediate, because I think you probably want to have some continuity, but I don't think they're very long-term future of the club. I suppose the challenge, we look at some of the Thelwell, right? So how many sporting directors are there of a quality that Rangers could attract? And I suppose that's part of the issue with the manager as well. How many were there that we could attract? We've took in somebody from the Premier League. There's probably not a lot of other ones that were banging down the door now. We can argue about how bad his decisions have been since he got in there, including appointing his brother or his son. Sorry, not his brother. That's coming next week. Appointing his son. Some of the decision making, we look at it from the outside and think they're bad decisions. Now, we don't really know how they will turn out in reality. We don't know whether this Robbie Thelwell is the best recruitment head in the world. We don't know whether Chamiti will turn out to be a Portuguese superstar. But at the moment, the decisions coupled with Russell Martin's shocking appointment make him, I suppose, person non grata at Ibrox at the moment.
True. What's your thoughts then, Baz, on what Danny Rohl can actually do? As I say, like the supporters are in the dumps at the minute. We've got a team there that turn it on when they want and turn it off when they want at the same time. We've seen that again last weekend. They had everyone excited for 45 minutes and we're all like, here we go. The shackles are off. Russell Martin's gone. We've got a new coach in that just took the shackles off and here we go. We're absolutely fantastic. And then we'll have 45 minutes of what we've seen where they just turn it off. I think Jack Butland made a comment on it as well. He says he doesn't know what goes through the players' heads at half the time. I think he wanted to say a bit more, but he held his tongue. He's got a big job on himself. It's already saying these players can play, Barry, but they only play, the mentality, it seems to be, they'll turn it on, but if they get a wee bit of pressure on them, they fall into themselves, they go into their shell. It's going to be hard for them to change that mentality.
There's two sides to the coin there. The fact is, he's coming into a team, and you're right, they can turn it on when they want to. That's a positive, that there's a team there that's got the quality. That, we can do it when we really put our heads down and we want to do it. The flip side of the coin is the mentality, and I don't like using that word because it's been used too often recently, but the reality is with these players is they drop their heads down too quickly. So that's your double-sided coin. A, they can really do it when they want to, and B, when they can't be bothered, they don't. So Danny Rohl has a massive role to play in terms of leadership and how he gets these players to play well for the 90 minutes and not just the first 45. So I don't really know a lot about him. I know he's got good rapport from his previous clubs, but what's required at Rangers is it's not just the coaching ability to get these guys of how to play. It's a matter of how they can sustain the play through the 90 minutes. When you come in at half time and you go back out again and you have the players pumped up for the second half and they continue to do what their game plan was in the first half, then we're going somewhere. So I think there's definitely scope there. It's not like we're looking at this team going, these players are all crap. That's not true. It's not true. There is some good players there. There's some players who are letting themselves down badly at the minute. Of course there is. But as I said to me on radio, they can do it. We've seen it. They can turn it on when they want to. So, but that's also going to take leadership from the senior players in the squad, not just Danny Rohl. He can stand on the sideline, he can coach them, he can send them out there to do what they want. But some of the senior players in the pitch need to stand up and be counted a bit more with these players. If you're starting a second half and you see the players starting to drop a wee bit, you need these senior players to, pull them to the shoulder and just say, like, oh, we need to up it. We need to keep the press on. We need to play better. So there's a lot of senior players and Danny Rohl that require good leadership.
Well, the problem for me, Gary, with that situation, we talk about senior players. It's the senior players that are the problem sometimes. I was watching John Suter there in his interview. He's meant to be a leading figure at our club. One of the, what was it they were called, the leadership group. He mumbled himself through one of his press conferences. I've never seen a guy more non-interested to be somewhere in my whole life, and he is in our leadership group. He's a player that plays every single week for us, and he's only one of the very few defenders we have that are actually ours, but we have him under contract because the rest are on loan. And just seeing him mumbling, and this was Russell Martin had gone, obviously Stevie said, so you thought he would have had a wee bit of ump in him as well. We're getting a bit of change here, but Barry's right. There should be it should be your older players, your experienced players. They should be the ones that's able to show the ropes. But I don't know if they have it. These experienced players have it in them, Gary. I don't know what you think of that.
Do Tav gets a lot of criticism over the years because they've not won enough trophies. But if you look at the games, or most of the games this season, in fact, he scored 4 goals out of the 8 games. He's by far our top goal scorer. And at the game on Saturday, even when he's left wing, right wing, centre forward, everything, trying to actually make something happen. I think it's often said that he leads by example. So I think that the issue is he does. Now you can criticise his ability, criticise his decline as a player and all the stuff that goes with it. But in terms of effort and desire to actually see the team win, he probably exemplified what you want, and then obviously goes back to the fans and takes the brunt of it. The problem is that there's not enough others now. The confidence is low. The front threes of guys like Asgard and Gassama, Ant-Man, they're falling into themselves. Suter's monosyllabic most of the time. At the best of times, he's not a communicator in any way. And you've got guys like Magoma and that are not experienced enough either. So there's an imbalanced squad there. I mean, we talk a lot about leaders, but the leaders of back in the day with Richard Gough or all these things are long gone. You don't get that. Most of the captains, most of the leaders across all the teams in Europe, the good teams, they're not guys that run about shouting. That's not how football works anymore. That's not how business works. That's not how you work your own job. So there's a bit of a disconnect for me a lot of time. What leadership is. Leadership is about being able to deliver your own performance and hopefully cajole some of the others into doing it. Whether they've got the right quality player that allows them to do it, or whether the squad is structured right to allow them to do it, I'm not quite sure. I think that's the issue. We've got, 4 loan players, 5 loan players in defence, and two defenders that are out of contract, so there's no balance there. You've got half a dozen midfielders that are actually... so is that Ricky? Sorry about that. Scott's got my pelters there in there, so I'll get him in a couple of hours time for that. But there's a good squad of players, but there's an imbalanced squad of players. Some of them are too young, some of them are not experienced, some of them have not had the ups and downs and haven't been able to cope with it so far this season. And you're then relying on a couple of players like Raskin, like Tav, that are able to try and drag them through. Most of the games has been the case. I'll shut up now.
What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on that then, Baz, as well? Like, as Gary says, or is it more about just showing what you can on the pitch? And the likes of Tav, look, Tav's not I'm not in the Tav camp, to be honest with you. That's just me. I'll be honest with you. Like, I just think he's sort of over the hill and should be replaced. But you can't argue with what Gary says. At the end of the day, he scored goals again this season. He's still the one pulling us out of hope, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. Like it or not, it's the truth. Like.
Well, that's one of half the problems with the fact that Taverniers having to go left wing, centre forward, right, left back, it shouldn't have to happen. That's the problem. He shouldn't have to do it, because the problem is when he goes left wing up front, he's nowhere to be seen at right back, and when we get counter attack, that's a huge problem for us. He is a right back. You know what I mean? That's what he should be doing. I get Gary's point on what he's trying to do. He's trying to drive the team. He's trying to get them forward. But the problem in that is who's not doing their job? Who's not doing it in midfield? Who's not doing it in the left wing? Who's not doing it up front? And then we get that ball over the top. We're a man down. So it's a very tricky one with Tavernier. But you are right. He is the guy with the goals. He is the guy who has done a bit more than a lot of the others. And Tavernier's I don't think we'll ever get a full support in Tavernier, unfortunately, but that's just the way it goes with Tav,
Yeah, well, this is it. That's just football at the end of the day. None of us, we'll all disagree, even in the comments, or some are saying don't want your man Danny. Some saying it's pronounced Danny Rohl, is it? Well, I'm going to say Danny Rohl until I just blame my Northern Irish accent for that. Danny Rohl, some are just going, nope, he's a Martin Mark II. We don't want him, useless. Other ones are saying, for fuck's sake, give him a chance. That's just football. And we'll all debate here. That's the same. Me and Gary were talking about Dessers just before we come on. A lot didn't want Dessers, and I think everyone would take him back and right this second. When you look at what we've been producing up front this last while, since he's not been here, at least he guaranteed you goals, which others don't seem to be so far. But the Sniper asked a comment earlier there, Gary, about the supporters being a bit toxic now. And do we think they're toxic? I'll ask Barry as well. He wants us all to answer that. I'll just go first. And I don't even know if it's toxicity. I think it's more, we're just pissed off, aren't we? We're just like, we've been through so much for so long, and we're just fucking done,
Yeah, this is when I get abuse for the Rangers fans in the comments. So my apologies here. So when I'm at the games, it does feel disheartening. I don't think it helps. When I get the principle of it, it's a bit like there was a protest at the other team's game yesterday. They're not telling me that helps the team. I mean, you can have as much anger, disappointment, frustration as you want at either club, but I don't think during the game it's been helpful. So if you're a new guy like I don't know, let's not pick Max Hearns because he's not great, but Asgard and other ones, you can certainly say they've shrunk with the abuse that's been happening around about them. Now, I'm not saying if we'd been all singing and happy clapping and all the stuff that might be in the comments, it would have been a different story, but I'm not sure how helpful it is being as critical as you have been over the last couple of months. And I think that we need, with the new manager coming in, we need to at least give it the opportunity to be a rousing, raucous Ibrox to at least see where it can go. And if it fails, at least it's failed on those terms rather than this horrible malaise and this disgruntlement or apathy that seems to set in every time you go. I went to the game on Saturday, not even looking forward to it at all. Not even remotely interested either way. I was there with my daughter, as I always am. And you don't want to be like, you want to have a bit of excitement, you want a buzz, you want to have something there. So I think we need that from the fans, we need that from everybody there, and then give it a week at least, give it a couple of games, and then we'll see how we're getting on.
Yeah, but just for so I think we've got a Heartspan in the comments there getting himself excited. Fair play to you, mate. You've been a sleeping giant there for nearly 80 years, but sure, you've got there eventually for a few games. You never know. Hopefully, you can keep it up because if you would rather you win the league than them other lot, to be honest. I don't think we're going to win much as it stands. Barry, what's your thoughts on the whole? Like, is the support toxic or what? At the minute, what's your thoughts on that?
It's a real difficult one. I mean, each supporter that pays their money into the ground is allowed to voice their own opinion, and that's really what it's down to. If you're talking about does it create an atmosphere with the players and it gets to them, well, it probably does. But the problem is, and you've had is for the last 15 years is that Rangers' success story is really poor. It's been season after season, generation now after generation watching Rangers not win really that much, and it's a frustrating thing. You know, we've all done it, Gary. Most successful club in world football. We've all been there, and we've held them mantles for years, and things have been slipping away recently. And a lot of the fans are just despondent. They're disconnected from the players. They're disconnected from the club and the board, and that's a huge problem. And for me, the only way you get supporters back on side is through the club and through players giving it 100% on the pitch and not throwing the towel in. And until that changes, you will get that certain amount of supporters that will just keep going. They'll keep going no matter about Danny Rohl. Danny Rohl could win the next 6 games in a row. They'll still want Phil Will and Stewart out. That won't go away. That's something that's going to stay there. And that's just... But the good times have to come. You need to be winning. You know, you've seen the game there at the weekend. You know, we couldn't even beat them at home. You know, we're 1-0 up. We're doing really well. But it ends up a 2 each draw. You know, so damn things don't help. You know, when you see a second half performance like you did at the weekend, again, that doesn't help. So, and by the way, the fans were in good voice in the first half. It was a good performance. It was all set up for the players to come out in the second half and just re-deliver what they did. And again, the players lacked urgency. They put their heads down. They let the game start running them by. And I just personally think until the results come, now a semi-final against the Emmons could be the point where they could turn it. If you can beat them in the semi-final and get into the final of a cup, that would help things. But success is the only thing that'll turn things around. It's the only thing.
See, the problem for me is though, there, Baz. Like, it's all right saying, yeah, I know what you're coming with. Beat Celtic in the semi-final. Well, that'll be the lightning rod. Or if they get a good result here on Thursday in Europe, that'll be the. We've seen all that before. The problem is you can't go and beat Livingston, Dundee. Like if we get 3 games in a row in the league, Livy, Dundee, and Dundee United, for talk's sake, we'll not win those 3. We'll fuck it up somewhere. We'll have a draw here. We'll have a loss here. There'll be a nonsense somewhere, and that's been another problem. Gary has it for a long time. It's a smaller. Your bread and butter games has been the problem.
Yeah, and I suppose everybody goes back to the Gerrard era, the 3 years it took to get to the trophy. What they've seen as incremental progress. He had those same results first season. He had the same results to some degree the second season when the wheels come off. But you can see progress now. I suppose the question is, after another 4 or 5 years of turmoil that we've had with Beale and Mont and Gio and now Martin, are fans willing to wait to see progress, or does progress need to come instantly? Because you will need to learn, you will need to adapt. So as a manager, I think he comes, or as a coach, sorry, don't call him manager, as a head coach, he comes from a kind of a more pressing style, German Bundesliga type style of football. Now, when you've got 70% possession and get 10 men behind the ball, it's going to be a totally different game for him. So it will take him time to adapt his coaching style, adapt his tactics. So if he doesn't get off to a good start, sadly, fans may turn, but arguably needs a little bit of time for him to adapt as well. And that's some of the challenge we've got.
What do you think, Baz, or Gary? I'll ask you first. What do you think is success for Danny Rohl for this season? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't expect you to say in the league. I would all want the league. I know that, but it's going to be a hard ask. But what would you say? You know, at the end of the season, to get you excited for next season, basically.
So before I've got a 10 on Rangers to win the league at 6-1, so I'm still going for the league title, which I so
the bet's never beat till it's beat.
Still there, bet's still there. Do you know what? I think that we were joking at the weekend about obviously Celtic dropping points, more points than we dropped. So it was a good weekend for us. We closed the gap over them. And I suppose that's the thing. You know, much as I see there's Hearts fans in, I would love to say they'll do well. I'm sure they will do fine, but I don't think they have depth of squad. So I still think the main challenges are Celtic. And was it 8 points? I can't remember off the top of my head. 8 points to me isn't insurmountable. So I am still thinking there is potential. If you can get on a roll, you get without, no pun intended there, I didn't even mean that.
We're on a roll. I can just picture it now. We're on a roll.
Didn't even mean that. My apologies to the listeners. So if you can get on a run, confidence breeds confidence. Once you get the confidence up, and you can start to create that momentum. That's the thing that's been lacking across the club for the last couple of years. There's been no momentum. We had it with Clermont right through to March when it was at 19, 20 games. You were unbeaten and momentum was there. You went top of the league. We've not really had that since. I think if we can get that, you can close the gap. And I still think there's potential to win 3 of the 4 trophies you're in. The Europa League's maybe still a depth, but you do want to still be able to qualify for that.
What's your thoughts, Baz? Then what do you think? Because the end of the day, the slate will be wiped clean, and for us anyway, with Daniel, he's only in the door. But if you're looking at the end of the season, what boxes would you want ticked, basically?
You have to aim high. Yeah, I mean the points at the top of the league are obviously they're far too big for our liking, but you have to still aim for that. You have to still come in and go, right, win every week, you have a chance, and that's what you got to do. That no matter what game you're playing, whether it's Europa League, whether it's a semi-final of the cup coming up, when the Scottish Cup. So you've got to just keep trying to believe that you can win. It's getting instilling in the players that you can win regularly and you can keep that momentum going. For me, he definitely has to win the semi-final. And he definitely has to win that, because I think if we could put out of that, it would be a disaster for him. He does need a bit of time. I just don't. The fans won't give him time, Gary. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They might give him a couple of weeks, but after that, if there's no improvement, they're just in that mood at the minute. That's just the way it is. It's the reality. But yes, William, the semi-final for me is a huge one. Starting to actually show that we can play in Europe again. These are all big asks, but we're a huge club, and these are the demands that this club's had since day one, since it's been formed. So. Yeah, for me, the semi-final and just seeing the players play longer than 45 minutes. We need to see momentum for 90 minutes, and and for me that's the biggest thing. If he can do it early, brilliant. If he doesn't, he will be on a tightrope. That's just the reality.
But see, the thing is too, Gary, though, that the supporters want to buy into something, right? And I know way everyone says we crack up, and we do, because we're a mental support, we are, and we know that because we're just addicted to it. So we're not playing well, we all take it to heart, and that's just the way we are as supporters, because they're on our mind 24/7. That's why we do podcasts and stuff, and that's why you're all watching, because we're all the same. We're all addicts for Rangers, but at the same time, Gary, we like say Max Aarons come on and says, "Oh well, it's hard. The supporters are hard on us and all, and that doesn't help." Where was the excuse in that second half? Ibrox was bouncing on Saturday. Everybody was loving it. Everyone, and it was the team that came out in the second half with the supporters cheering them as they come off, and cheered them coming back on the pitch. And you couldn't. It was you can't blame the supporters for that one when you were getting bullied by Dundee United. And yes, I know the supporters then did turn once they seen what was happening, and we conceded 2 silly goals that we shouldn't have. But if your man Danny Rohl, in my opinion, gets everything going, and we get a couple of good results, I actually think the fans will go with him 100%. But it's just the players have to. It's up to them too. It's easy to blame managers, it's easy to blame Fairwell, it's easy to blame Russell Martin, but the players need to be doing it as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, up to now, the players have probably got off scot-free, haven't they? They've been kind of left out of the criticism. It's been the people that pick the team, or the people that pick the players, in terms of the recruitment. So the players have not really had the criticism over the last couple of months, whereas in previous years, it's been the players that have got the brunt of the criticism, whether that be Tav, Lundstrom, whoever else it's been over the period. It's been their fault. It's been, I can't remember, there's tons of them, Dessers, all these other ones. It's been their fault. We've never done this, but this season it's been about the manager to blame. It's been about Kevin Fairwell and Michael Stewart. We can blame him every week as well, because we don't like him. But what's his name? Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart. So
we don't like Michael Stewart either.
No, we don't like him either. He's not got a clue. So the players have been lucky in a sense. They've had to obviously deal with the fact that there's a lot of animosity around the ground and that kind of horrible tense atmosphere, but they've not been singled out individually in the way that maybe has been in previous years. So they should feel a lightness with the new manager coming in. They should be able to then hopefully get and express himself. I can understand, when there's a caretaker manager and one game of Stevie Smith, how many times we've seen it with Ian Durrant, Stephen Davis, and how many others over the years that they've never really been able to get enough lot out of the team as they come in temporarily. But with a new manager, if you can't start to get something firing quite quickly, the new manager bounce, as they call it, and all that other stuff that they talk about, then maybe starts to breed that momentum. And then, because I think the thing is, we think there's good players there, don't we? I think some of the time we think there's good players. Other weeks we think there's, or other halves, as I said, maybe the second half we think they're rubbish players. The first half we think they're good players. So there is, what we don't really know is how good they are at the moment. So if we can see what attributes they've really got, we can then see whether we actually can challenge, because we don't really know if they've got the quality to challenge properly at this moment in time, because we've never really seen enough from them.
Yeah. So as I was looking there, I say people was cracking. Some people saying it's Russell Martin Mark II, and others were saying that's a load of bollocks, basically. Which it is. It isn't. He does play a different style of football. He's more attacking boy. It proved on Saturday there if we do go out and attack and get the ball forward, and look at the amount of chances we had. So I think we had more shots in that first half than we probably had all season under Russell Martin. But it's as I said, it's all about, isn't it, getting that? Yes, they proved that they can do it, but they haven't proved they can sustain it for a full 90 minutes. I don't think we've had a full 90 minutes all season. Actually, we can sit and say Rangers team were great that 90. There was, I think, the European game to start, one of the early ones. We've done okay for the most, yeah. From that, and we kept going. It's clicked. Happy days. It started to click, and then it fell apart quite quickly after that. But I'm hoping your man Rohl can at least instill a mentality in this team, and I think then we'll be okay. It's more mental for me than it is quality.
Well, you've got to remember these group of players were with Martin from very early on in the summer. These guys he coached the crap clean out of them, and the problem is, yes, he's out the door, and we're looking at the players by changing their mentality, but they've been like that for all season. And sometimes when you're stuck in a rut, it's very easy to fall back on your old methods. When the first half was fantastic, you've seen them in the second half automatically reverting back to that old style that was seen from the start of the season. And that's on Russell Martin and how he was coaching these guys and how he instilled the mentality into the players. He always blamed the players, but the biggest blame was him. So the players it's going to take a wee bit of time for them players to get that ethos back into themselves and drive forward. And that's where Danny Rohl is going to come into play. That's where he's going to be able to say to these guys, you've done it in the first 45 minutes against Dundee United. Why are you not coming out and doing it in the second half? There are questions he can look at the players and ask them and find out the reasoning of why it's not happening. So that's a big hurdle for Danny straight away. But I firmly do believe with the players there, we can achieve that. I mean, if you look at the bench on Saturday, there was good players on the bench. Lyle Cameron didn't even get game time. There's a player who I think should be in the first 11. That's a player who is suited to Scottish football, gets into the faces of people, likes to run, likes to charge, likes to run back, so there is decent players there. The jury's out in Shimmery. We'll just have to see how that works out. But my biggest problem is I think the players can do it. I honestly do. But it's just having the right figurehead there to encourage them and keep the momentum going with them and not letting them slip back and reverting back to their old methods. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's a strange one, Gary, isn't it? Because all season, we've talked about players' mentality, and we've heard a load of people saying it as well. How many people's been out, like ex-players and stuff, have come out and said that Rangers mentality is shocking. Martin O'Neill was on today. I know we don't like that name, but Martin O'Neill was on the Talk Sport today, and he was actually had a passion, believe it or not, more for he was like, this is Rangers Football Club. These people need to know what they're representing and stuff. And I was sitting going, fuck, he's getting it more than some of our players get it at the minute. But he was saying something similar, about he says they just don't have the mentality. But you think if you had that in you, Gary, and you were listening to all these people, you'd actually want to go out and prove them wrong, wouldn't you? You'd think, you fucking question my mentality, I'll show them. Wherever they just don't seem to be able to go in their shells, don't they?
It's used all the time, this word mentality, isn't it? Nobody really knows what it means in terms of the football context. I mean, each of those players have played football since a very young age and played through and developed and became one of an elite bunch of people that get to play professional football. So to do that, you've got to have a level of mentality to actually get to that point in time. Now, what it seems to mean in the football context is it's when the chips are down, they maybe revert to type, as Baz said, or they maybe do something that's out with, or they shrink into their jersey, all the sort of stuff that goes with it. But that can't be unique to just Rangers. That's not, we can't just be buying players' wrong mentality over and over again. There's got to be more to it than that. I think it's too simplistic often to say it's the mentality it's to blame. I think it's sometimes to do with the mix. It's sometimes to do with the culture and the club in the background, which is probably a lot to do with it. It's about the wrong voice speaking as the manager. And it is a little bit about the supporters and I suppose that culture of confidence and excitement and adrenaline and all the stuff that goes with it. There's a whole host of things. I think mentality is too simple a word. For me, it frustrates the life out of me because people just use it as a throwaway remark that that they're not strong enough to deal with it. They don't reach an elite football environment and get to come to Rangers if they don't have a level of ability and probably mindset to get them to that point. I think it can't just be about them being able to not be able to deal with it once they're there. There must be more to it than that.
And another new word we've had is anxiety, isn't it? That's another one's been thrown into the mix, but that was Russell Martin threw it at himself. I had a lot of anxiety watching his team.
You never use the word anxiety. My players are anxious because it gives them a get out to be anxious. You don't positively reinforce something that you don't want to happen. You don't tell them things are bad because bad things then happen. That's common sense, and that's just bad management. That was often one of his many poor traits.
Well, I'll ask you another question then, because there's a few people asking in the comments about who he'll be bringing with him. I actually don't know. I don't know if any views are read. I suppose when you've been on, it's hard to read anything. But would you want anyone, Baz, with him that's maybe had a Rangers past, or do you think that's maybe it's not needed as a coach just to come in and help him?
Clement brought in Alex Ray, and that didn't really work. So it's not necessarily bringing in an ex-player to get in It's just bringing the right people. It's the right person with the right mannerisms, the right ethos, and how you can instill it to the players. You can have former Rangers players coming in and shouting at them in the changing room, this isn't what Rangers are about, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. We've seen it with Barry Ferguson when he came in, and Alan McGregor and Neil McCann, and they were still doing the same crap. So I don't think necessarily the Gerrard one was different when we talked about him bringing Defoe and all these guys. I think we're all getting caught up in that hype of bringing the old days back from them years ago and winning that league title again. I think we all got hyped up into that. The Neil McCann one with Muscat was different because Muscat wasn't going to be there, and he needed somebody maybe that the fans would take to straight away to sort of run the ship before he came in. Danny Rohl's a different situation because I just want to see the right team around him. Russell Martin came in and brought a guy in the league. He was coaching beside him, and he hadn't been anywhere higher than League One in England. It was wrong people, just the wrong people around him. So I'm not too bothered about whether it's an ex-Rangers player or not. It's just having the right person, just having the right team around Danny that can get the best out of these players, and it doesn't necessarily need to be an ex-player, in my view.
Yeah, what's your thoughts, guys? I see Barry's already on first terms with the manager, Danny.
Yeah, Barry, good pals. It's the title of another podcast, isn't it? So there is rumours, isn't there, that Lee Wallace is supposedly one of the backroom staff. I don't know. Did they play with him at Sheffield Wednesday? Or play for him at Sheffield Wednesday? I can't remember. I know he was at QPR, then he went somewhere else. I don't know before he retired. So Lee Wallace is linked. Sure. There's obviously some speculation that Chris Burke left Kilmarnock last night to pursue other opportunities. So could he be linked to it? And again, he played it many years in England, and you're assuming there's probably some sort of German connections as well. So they're the ones that I've heard to be bits and snippets today. But the truth in it, who knows? I think there's some logic to bringing in somebody like Lee Wallace, who's a former Rangers captain, very much adored by the Rangers fan base. I don't think that would do Danny Rohl any harm. It's a bit like everybody loves Neil McCann at the time, so that's why people try and wheel him out for everything. So bringing somebody that has that kind of, stature in Lee Wallace would make sense. Chris Burke, I don't know anything about him, but just on the basis that he's obviously an ex-Rangers player, played in England, reasonable career, and he's been coaching and all of a sudden left Kilmarnock for another opportunity. You wonder if there's some truth in that.
Just going to read out the Barry as well. There, I've got in 6 games in the space of 2 weeks. So his first 6 games will be Brann away on Thursday, Kilmarnock at home, Hibs away in the league cup semi beats them, Roma at home, and an away game at Dens Park to Dundee. It's they're coming thick and fast, Baz. So we'll find out this time 2 weeks how much these players have learned.
Well, that's it, exactly. But every game now is just important. It doesn't matter. We've been poor at home at Ibrox, really poor at home at Ibrox as well. So that's another milestone we need to get right. We need to make Ibrox a fortress again, and we need to make it difficult for teams to come and not want there's teams coming to Ibrox at the minute, and they're fancying their chances, and they think they can get a win. That shouldn't happen. Ibrox should be tight. It should be an absolute cauldron, and they should be dreading going to Ibrox again. That's the way it should be. But all these games, I mean, let's not forget, we have to go away to Hearts, we have to go away to Aberdeen, we have to go away to Hibs, we have to go away to Kilmarnock, we have to go, we have some really, really tough games coming up in the next while. We have to go away to the Emmons. There's a lot of big games. The Roma game, huge game for Rangers in Europa League. It doesn't matter anymore, William. There's no favourable ties, I don't think, between now and the end of the season. Every game is just, you go, you have to try and win it. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts, Gary, on like the Thursday? Because I think basically, if we lose away, we can sort of just say, look, that's it over. As in progressing, because I think we've got, was it Porto? Is it Braga as well? I think Porto, Braga, and
Porto, Braga, Roma. Can't remember the other ones. Top of my head.
So it's tough, but you never know. Maybe as you say, maybe we get that manager bounce for Thursday, and maybe just. What a great start it would be for him, though, if he could go out and say he could get 3 points in Europe and then have a good performance against Kilmarnock. At least that'll get the train sort of moving anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you were getting a Europa League game away from home, I think Brann would probably be the one you'd handpick, wouldn't you? And that's a reasonably good tie to play against. You should have in years gone by, we'd have been quite comfortable expecting us to go there and get a result. Obviously, this with Russell Martin era, that's been put paid to that over the last couple of months. But generally speaking, we'd be pretty confident about going to Brann in Norway, and I think a few of their main players are out. So I think if we can take something from that game, even if it's a draw, I think even the first game, you want to win, but if you start off not losing, it keeps you in a reasonably solid footing, and particularly because you get a bit of leeway because it's his first game, and he's only in, and all the stuff that goes with it. But I think, as Baz said, the important thing is that we just need to win games of football. We technically speaking, we have a stronger squad, we have a bigger budget, we have more players, we have all that stuff and all that. We can moan about Hearts might be a difficult game, Kilmarnock might be a difficult game, Hibs, etc., etc., etc. But if you want to win leagues, you want to win trophies, you want to do things, you're better players than them. You should arguably have a better coach than them, and then you should be able to beat them. That's it. The problem is we've now got, as a club, starting to worry too much about who we're playing against as opposed to showing who we are, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, mate. It is. And as both of you have said, and I agree with you, there actually is no easy. He likes the Livy games, the Falkirk matches. I mean, they're nothing's actually easy for us at the minute. They're all tough matches, no matter how we play. David Boardman has put in, I'll ask you this, Barry, and then Gary, if you want to answer this after. Controversial thought: would you sacrifice Europe to salvage our domestic season, especially the semi-final for them? I'd been Europe in 2 seconds flat. I just want to win my bread and butter. I don't know what you think, boss.
Absolutely. I mean, the bread and butter. Rangers fans are starved of the league title. I mean, Europe is a bonus for Rangers, but the league title is the big one. It's the creme de la creme. That's what we need to be winning. That's 55 was great, but 55 was ages ago. You know what I mean? It's 56, 57. That's what we're looking. Scottish Cups, trebles. This is how Rangers have been so successful in their whole history, was domestic. That's where we always got the trophies. Yes, we won the Cup Winners' Cup. Again, you're talking, that's a long, long time ago. We've got the couple of Europa League finals. They're great if you can get to them. But in a straight answer, would it sacrifice Europe? 110%. 110%. If it meant winning the League Cup, if it meant running the two top teams at the minute really close till the end of the season and still being in the mix to win the title, yes. Winning the Scottish Cup, yes. Europe's a bonus. That's all it is at the minute.
Yeah, what about yourself, Gary? You similar thoughts?
I'm going to disagree a wee bit, Baz. My apologies. Right, mainly because I don't understand the question. I never really get this sacrificing Europe to salvage them. So what does that mean? Does that mean you play a reserve team in Europe? What does it look like? What does sacrificing one competition to do well in another competition mean? You've got a squad of 25 players. You should be competitive in all of them. I'm not, because what happens if you go out and play a reserve team against Brann, for example? It doesn't then help you in Sunday, particularly get a result against us. So I'm always a bit confused what that actually means. I think as a club, we win every game, go out and compete in every game as best we can.
I think it's a hypothetical question in terms of, at the end of the season, would you be in Europe but have the success in the league? I think I know where you're coming from, the ethos of there's no point getting beat 5-0 by Brann on Thursday night, but hoping you win 1-0 against Livy on a Saturday and keep that trend. I understand that part. I'm talking in a hypothetical part of the end of the season. Would I prefer to have real success in the league? Yes. if it meant not having success in Europe. I think that's where I'm coming from with the hypothetical part of it. Not so much I want to see it. I don't really care about Thursday night. I do, and I want us to win. I'd love to win on all fronts. I'm using his question as a hypothetical, just at the end of the season.
I think for any, if we could guarantee that going out of Europe would guarantee his trophies at the end of the season, we'd all go for it, wouldn't it? I think that's the point. I suppose what it does is it doesn't. Well, that's the thing. It doesn't really make a difference how the rest of the season goes in terms of that. So I want to win every game. I want to watch the team score goals, and I want to be excited. And what that will bring, it'll bring. I don't think we're not going to win Europa League. We should still be able to qualify in the top 24 because it's harder not to qualify, I think, most of the time. But it's not going to bring us any more success than we've had in the previous years. What matters is the trophies, and it's the 2 cups in the league. And if going out of Europe, take Bazzy's point, if going out of Europe meant we were guaranteed a trophy just now, we'd all take it, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Well, see, what I look at it is, the way I look at it, see, like, to that question that David's asked, the way I look at that question, and everybody looks at things different, obviously. The way I look at that sort of question, I think to myself, right, under Walter, we weren't great, and I know we made a European final, obviously, but we know what way we had to play to get there, and that was fair because Walter done what he had with the tools he had and got us there, dragged us that European Cup final. But in the main, we weren't great. Even when we were winning 9 in a row, we weren't great in Europe. We know that. We're always out pretty early. We've seen them lot dominating the Scottish League for a long time. Absolutely useless in European football. Wherever we've been terrible in the league, but actually very decent in Europe, and we could turn up against anyone, even the likes of Dortmund and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe that question is more like what the style. Do you know what I mean? So if the problem for us seems to be whatever style we implement in Europe that them lot don't works in Scotland, but doesn't work for us. Do you know what I mean? So in my opinion, I would rather focus on winning the league and a style for the league if that meant sort of it maybe wouldn't work just as well in Europe. But then the problem is, if you're not winning European games and making the money, how do you fund it?
And should you not be able to do both? I suppose. I mean, if I'm thinking back at the third year with Gerrard, right? If we pick that as an example, we won the league 55, and if I remember rightly, we were able to adapt our style when at European games. We would play against teams that are better than us, better quality, more money, and you'd be a bit more defensive, a bit more solid. And then in the league game, you go and attack a bit more. Do you bring in different players? It's in the right squad. I think that's the challenge. Is we don't necessarily have the right players to adapt and change the system up to now. So there's a lot of players that are very similar. Some players we don't have enough of, and left back. Some players we don't have enough of in terms of goal scorers. But the plan should be that you could go back to Gerrard's years. You bring in Aribo for a league game because he was more attacking. You bring in Ryan Jack for a European game. Do you know that's the issue? We should be able to do both.
Yeah,
but do we need to be then? Do you not think, Gary, that we've also been a wee bit? There's been a bit of snobbery with Rangers and Scottish players too, you know what I mean? Because we've seen a lot, like Gerrard, as you just said there, and he was right. He's seen some good Scottish talent and went, as you said, there's certain now I want it. Like Ryan Jack, he loved Ryan Jack, and do we need to get to that as well? Sort of looking at the good Scottish talent and thinking, right, let's fucking nab him now, you know what I mean? And he'll be good for those games at Falkirk and all that.
We just need the right squad. Again, it's not about the nationality. It's about the right balance, the right mix. You've got, I said it before, we've got a left back that shouldn't be playing left back every week because he's not experienced enough. He's not getting no competition. We've got centre halves that don't necessarily that don't fit the style potentially they wanted to play. We've got an abundance of number 10 type players. You talked about Lyle Cameron, Baz. I'd like to see Bajrami get a game. I think he could be doing very similar to what those two are. We've got 3 strikers that don't necessarily match a particular style either. So I think it's not about the nationality. I think, yes, you can pepper your team with Scottish players or British players or whatever it may be, but it's about getting the right balance and the right blend, and we've not had that for too many years now.
Yeah, just was trying to find a wee comment there. I'll find it after. Where are we here? I'll find it after. So somebody wrote a comment here, as I said, I was going to give him a shout out, but I'll find that after. So just quickly, boys, sort of wrap things up before we leave. What's your thoughts to say for the next 2 games before we go just quickly and sum it up? Danny Rohl coming in. What's your thoughts now that you've got time to sort of mull it over and accept that this is the way Rangers are heading?
Well, we'll probably find out on Thursday when he names a team sheet. You know what I mean? We'll probably see where he's at. Gary made a great point about Barami as well. Barami, there's a very good player in Barami. Very, very highly talented player. Hasn't done it with us so much, but there is a player there. And what it would like, Danny Rohl's going to come in, and there's going to be a fresh start for everybody. So players like him's got the opportunity now, Gary, to make a state for his position. And I like Barami. I don't know, William. It's hard. I don't think I processed it still. I'm still waiting on the last minute thing. There's something wrong. It's just been like that for a while. I don't know. We'll wait and see. I don't really have massive thoughts on it. I'll wait and see when he sets up his team on Thursday night and this weekend and Sunday, and we'll just see what his thoughts are with certain players and who he decides to start. Until then, I'll reserve judgment. I don't want to say too much and bite me in the ass. So I'll wait and see. I don't know.
That's happened a few times, dear, hasn't it, with 5-1 predictions and stuff?
But it was going crazy them days.
What about yourself, guys? Just a quick sum of we know where we are. We're sort of we know who we're going with forward. Just what's your last thoughts on it, mate?
So I suppose the last point is we've appointed a manager, right? So Gerrard was. So let's get behind him. But Gerrard was the easy option because I think Baz said it brought back the emotions, it brought back all the love and all the players from there. Kevin Muscat, you said it earlier on. I've never watched a game. I've never heard Kevin Muscat speak. I've never watched any of his games. I don't, other than the fact I knew that they'd won in Australia, China, and Japan. I don't know how good a coach is, how bad a coach is, how successful they've been. None of us do. We can sit there and say we thought they would do well. Danny Rohl, what do I know about him? He was a German number 2. He was a Bayern Munich number 2. He done quite well with Sheffield Wednesday. Again, I don't know very much about him. So how I suppose what fascinates me a lot of times in all these pods and all these stories and all these media stuff that goes out nowadays in football is that people have got so many opinions about their style, about their tactics, about their approach, about their man management. We don't really know until they get in the door. And that's the thing. We will learn as weeks go by who's going to be whether they'll be successful or not, whether he picks the right players, whether it gets a style that we enjoy as fans. And until then, we can just talk about it on these podcasts, or else we wouldn't have a job to do with that. But we don't actually know the answer. It's all speculation. It's all rumour. It's all thoughts. And for us, hopefully Danny Rohl can be the one we've been pining for the last couple of years that actually bring us a club back to where we're at. And none of us will know this today whether that's going to be the case. We will know in 2 weeks potentially when it starts getting booed, but hopefully it's when we start winning games. And that's where I'm at. You get behind where you're at and just see where it goes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, just before we go, as I said, and then somebody wrote in, there's no actual name on the YouTube comment. It just says, greetings from Western Australia. I'm a Northern Ireland expat. He says, with 2 Rangers clubs here in Perth, Australia, the Rockingham Rangers, which is his own club, and the Perth Rangers. And he says just to give him a wee shout out, which I'm very happy to do. Just before we go off, Gary, do you want to just let everyone know? I know most of the ones that are commenting are loyal to both of us and sit and watch us all the time. But for ones that are watching me that maybe don't know what you guys are all about, do you want to let them know where you are and how to find you and stuff?
Yep. So thanks for having us on. It's great. We've got a really good relationship together, and we're on each other's pods quite regularly. So we are Not Another Rangers podcast on YouTube on a Monday and a Friday night at 8:30 on Spotify as well. Tonight, please tune in because we have a Sheffield Wednesday podder on that's going to give us a lowdown on Danny Rohl. So we're going at 8:30 with Scott and Ricky and myself and with Sheffield Wednesday podder. We'll give us a bit of an update on what he's like. Well, that's literally what I said 2 minutes ago, but not actually buying into all that stuff. We're now going to have somebody else going to tell us all that and what he's tactics is. Feel bad now. All the stuff that goes with it. So catch us there. It's a growing pod. It's just four guys talking about football, nothing serious. We don't know any more than you know in the comments, and it's a bit of fun. Same as this show.
Are you on at 8:30, Gary?
8:30 will be on now.
So here you go, guys. If you go on to Not Another Rangers podcast, I'll find them on X and obviously YouTube and all as well. So follow them on, and there'll be even more Rangers chat for all of us addicts to go and watch again. That's just what we love to do. We love watching and hearing. And if I say anyone that enjoys us will enjoy it because it's the same as ours, just a casual pod. We just give our own opinions. We don't think we know any better than anyone else. We just give opinions, and so we always come back on a Monday when we've got it wrong or if we've got it right, and face the music. That's just what we do. But it's been amazing having you with us again as well, Gary. You're always welcome. We love coming on to yours as well, and it's always good fun. Between we've got a lot of huge respect for each other, the 2 podcasts, and we help each other out, which is the Rangers way. And hopefully, Danny Rohl comes in and does really well for us. That's all we can ask, and that's all we want. We just want success at Rangers Football Club, and hopefully, when we come back on Monday, we'll have had 2 wins, and everyone will be excited and getting carried away. As I say, thank you for joining us, and we'll be back with you again on Monday.